So the trailer for the Adam Project just came out, and it's already on trending just a couple hours ago. And I want to give myself a challenge. I've always wanted to do a time-bound VFX challenge, and I think this is it because the effect is basic. Obviously, it's hard. They spend a lot of time making it, but I think I'm gonna give it a try. So what I'm gonna do is watch this clip one last time, and keep notes of what stuff I have to include in my shooting and in my editing. And this will be the last time we'll be watching it during the entirety of process. And yeah, let's go for it. So I just watched the clip for the last time, and it's after midnight right now, so I don't think I'll be shooting right now. So I think I'm just gonna go start modeling the, let's call it Ryan's pole. Ryan's big black pole. Yep. I had a couple hours to think of the name. Ryan's pole is the best I could come up with. So it's 5 in the morning, and I have finished making the model. It was really difficult because I couldn't see it for the entirety of the process, but I remembered there being some pieces in front of the light that had gaps between them. I also remember there being some rotating pieces, so I put those in. The problem is I don't remember the dimensions of Ryan's pole. So I don't know when I'm gonna hold it in my hand, Ryan's pole. Is it going to be the correct size as it was in the trailer, or is it just going to be too long or too short? I don't know. The sun is out, I have some light, and I can technically go and shoot a couple shots. So I'm gonna go. So I made a huge mistake and wasted more than half my time. What I did was, well, actually what I did not do was I did not have any tracking markers on this thing that I had in my hand, and I thought I could manually place the 3D model of the pole in my hand and match move it manually every frame. But turns out the micro movement of my hands are really difficult to manually again in a 3D software. Or maybe it is for you, it's just a pain in the ass for me. Then I thought I'll just use an object tracker and choose some points on my hand, let some little contrast points on my hand, and use them to track the object. But it didn't work, and at this point I should have stopped and went back to the shooting part, but I pushed through thinking I'm really smart, I can figure it out. So I brought in a 3D model of a hand so that I could match move the hand, and then I could put the object in that 3D hand, and it was a waste of time, absolute waste of time. So now what I'm gonna do is go back to shooting, and I've used these tracking markers on this pole this time. I don't know if this will work anymore. See you in a couple hours. I'm really happy to announce that I have actually managed to succeed in what I was trying to do. I used these tracking markers that I taped on to my object. I used the motion tracker in Cinema 4D, which comes with a solved camera. I gave it the focal length of my camera, which I knew because I set it while I was shooting it. Inside the motion tracker, I used 2D tracking, and automatic tracking worked just fine. I didn't have to manually track it because the marks were really good. Then I used those tracking points inside of motion tracker and assigned them to an object tracker. Use those trackers to create a scene by going into reconstruction and clicking on run 3D solver for object, to make the scene in 3D. Yep, it is a process, but it's a process for another video. I'm not going to go deep into object tracking right now. Then all I had to do was bring in my animated pole, which is here. I made it a child of object tracker, so it stays wherever the tracker goes in 3D space. Then I aligned it to my hand, or the object, well, in my hand, so it looks correct in orientation. So I've already wasted a lot of my time manually tracking it before, and I only have a couple of hours left, and talking to a camera is not helping. So I'm just gonna leave these materials, not that realistic, but I'm still gonna match them to the room and give it a color space that looks alright. If I had more time, I'd add some imperfections and fingerprints and all those sorts of stuff, but I don't think I have that time right now. I'm gonna use an incandescent material for the emission of those lights, and a rough metal material for the Ryan's pole. Never gets old. Okay, so the close-up of Ryan's pole is rendered out, and I thought I was going to composite it right now, but I'm going to go forward and work on the white shot because it's going to need a lot of manual tracking and adjustment, and I'm going to composite all of that in the end. I don't know how much time each shot is going to take, so procrastination. Right now I'm going to go into the white shot. I'm going to bring my footage inside of motion tracker in Cinema 4D, and I'm going to bring in my object into the motion tracker, well, outside the motion tracker. I'm gonna align the object with the pole in my hand. I'm gonna go frame by frame and match the position coordinates and the rotation values of this object every single frame for like, how many frames is it? 44 frames? 45 frames. It's 45 frames. I'm gonna go every single frame and I'm gonna do it, and maybe some motion blur in the end. Okay, so the renders are finished, and while rendering the close-up shot, I knew the materials are unrealistic, so I exported with the multipass. I made a diffuse, specular, reflection, and an emission pass. And emission pass is really very important for this effect because you're gonna have to add glow, and you don't want to add that glow on your pole. I brought in the render sequence in After Effects. I used the extractor plugin to separate all the diffuse, specular, and emission layers. Then what I did was rotoscoped my hand because the pole goes between my fingers and my palm, so the fingers are supposed to be in front of the pole. Obviously, at last, for the glowing light part of this effect, what I did was I brought in the emission pass using the extractor plugin. I added the deep glow effect only on the emission pass so that nothing else get deep glown or glowed. For the money shot, I repeated the same process. I made separate passes, and in the emission pass, I added some deep glow. I keyframed the deep glow to go from blue to red because I remember it going from blue to red in the original clip. I also remember that in the original clip, as soon as the pole hits the ground, there is supposed to be an explosion, sort of. And I also specifically remember there going some wavy lines from the ground. And to sort of replicate this effect, what I did was I brought in an anamorphic flare. I animated a mask for that flare to come from the ground as soon as the pole hits the ground and then expand to the whole scene. And while that's happening, I remember those wavy lines going up, and for that all I did was I added a energy element that was supposed to be a straight line. You can do it with Saber plugin, which is also free. I added a displacement map, animated the evolution, turned that layer into 3D, and just spread it across the scene so that it looks like all of those lines are coming from the ground and then scaling up, moving outside towards the space. Now is the time to find out the truth. Wanna see something cool? Okay, so I watched the two footage side by side and they weren't close at all. The problem was absolutely the scale, which I thought would be the problem. The pole was supposed to be like the size of the actor, and my turned out to be like half or 3/4 my size. Was, first of all, the model was really detailed in the original clip, but then again they had a lot of time to do it, and I made a really janky model. There were spinning parts and moving parts, but it wasn't as detailed, so it didn't look that cool. But the real problem really lied in the end, because I remember there being lines emitting from the ground, but they weren't lines. I reckon they were particle simulation creating trail. I don't really know. It could have been anything. I think they made it in Houdini, but regardless, they weren't 2D assets turned 3D. But I'm still glad I did this, because I did learn a couple of things, like I can't manually make those micro movements in a 3D software. Maybe I can with practice, but right now I can't. So I also haven't slept for 25 hours. I'm gonna go sleep. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't. Until next time, goodbye.